Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. And rather than focus on politics today, I thought we would try something new. Well, I've done this before where we're talking about a different subject. This is smart guns. So there's now a push legislatively and culturally towards the smart gun technology. Now there's a new company called, let me see what it's called, BioFire. And they have the first 9mm handgun that I know of that is smart. The first one was made by Armatrex, I think that's what their name is, but it was a 22 long rifle. Now, anyone who has a brain, okay, which are all my listeners, because, well, you guys found this podcast, and which means you're into guns and politics, you understand very much that when seconds count and helps minutes away, you need it now, okay? Have you ever unlocked your phone or tried to unlock your phone using biometrics and you ended up having to put in the code? Could you imagine the bad dudes knocking down your door and your gun won't unlock or the battery's dead on the gun? Now, BioTrax, let's see what they're called. BioFire, that's who they are. BioFire says that they have put in fail-safes to fix this and that you can customize this to multiple users, and it uses biometrics. So it uses fingerprints, basically, either on the trigger or on the handle itself or on the back of the slide of this 9mm handgun. Now, it's a neat idea, but the only places I could see this being kind of okay, and I say kind of, would be law enforcement. There are several incidents where law enforcement have had their guns taken away from them and used against them. Now, that said, the same thing I said before applies to law enforcement. If they need their gun, they don't need it to fail, or they don't need to try 8 different times to get the damn thing unlocked so they can use it. Now, these are my primary problems with this. There's several other things to think about with this. Number one, if there were an EMP pulse, the electronics on this would probably be fried. So now you have a rock again. Okay? That's one. Number two, this uses encryption of biometrics data to go ahead and allow it to unlock. I don't know how it's networked or if it is networked. And if that were the case, that would open a vulnerability to hacking. So now your gun's hacked. And then, of course, there's government involvement here. Anytime you allow electronics into something nowadays, you're allowing a backdoor for a nefarious actor to go ahead and turn something on or off. Could you imagine having your gun hacked to where it was held ransom until you paid a fee? You know, what if there's a subscription fee for having this feature on your gun? Now, I understand there's a lot of people that are interested in smart guns, so much so that it's becoming a legislative thing, specifically in Massachusetts, I believe, right now, and New Jersey, and to be honest, California, all communist states nowadays. What they're trying to do is limit access to the gun. Now, there are several ways you can do that already. A gun safe is a great way to limit access to your gun. Having it on your person so you actually know where it is at all times, that is the best way, in my humble opinion, because, like I said, when seconds count and helps minutes away, it would behoove you to have the tool you need at the time you need it. When you start thinking about what's going on in Massachusetts and California and New Jersey, they have something called the gun. It's not a registry. Well, it kind of is. But it's actually what it's designed to do is it's called the gun roster. I was looking for that word. The gun roster, what it does is it allows vendors to sell guns in those states. So specifically, like in California, there are only certain types of guns you can buy in California that are on their gun roster. And smart guns are definitely on them. The same thing's going for New Jersey. They're pushing very heavily for a gun roster, and so is Massachusetts. Now, what that does is it limits vendors to sell their guns there, so it limits the option for the populace in those cities or those states. And what that does eventually is a backdoor way to gun control. Because if they're not on the approved roster, then the FFLs there can't sell them. And with the push in this legislation to develop rosters, what they're eventually trying to do is go towards the path of smart guns, if you're allowed to have a gun at all. And what they're trying to do is, again, limit access. You know, the purpose of this is that they're thinking that, and it's not a bad thought. I mean, this would work if it was 100% reliable. But I can tell you, having a Pixel 7 right now, Pixel 7 Pro, which is supposed to be one of the most state-of-the-art phones in the world, one of the things that pisses me off the most about it is the biometric reader it has. Now, I normally don't put biometrics into devices. I recently put it on this one, more so to test it out, because this is a newer phone to me. The reason why I don't is because I don't trust biometrics. Coming from an IT background, I know how biometrics work. Anything that requires a password or something like that, the way it was taught to me is it's something you know, something you are, or something, or the combination of the both of them, or a token that you have. Now, there are other smart guns. The Armatrex one that I was telling you about earlier, it uses a watch that you have to wear, or a ring that allows it to unlock. So it's a token, basically, you have. And I believe this gun also has that ability also. Now, like I said, the problem is what happens when you lose the token. The token loses its battery. In some cases, I could say tokens, I've used auto-generating tokens before, that the battery life on them was exceptionally long. But the chances of you needing the gun in that time frame are probably rare anyway. So the chance that you actually need it kind of makes it worth not having to worry about it. That's one of my biggest drawbacks or pushbacks that I've seen with red dots. You know, red dot battery life has gotten exceptionally good, in some cases 5 years. And I understand the idea behind it, making that with a red dot specifically, that you can actually acquire a target faster, and it's better for newer shooters who still haven't learned how to use their regular iron sights. But with a pistol and the limited ranges and abilities it has already, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to use a red dot. Now, I've shot guns recently, a handgun, a SIG, Legion, P228, that had a red dot on it. And what I found myself doing was chasing the red dot more than I'd actually care to. I'm no stranger to a pistol. Most of my listeners aren't strangers to pistols. But I understand if you're wanting to try this new technology and you're wanting to improve your accuracy, this is something that's definitely viable. But back to the smart gun thing. While this sounds increasingly attractive for people with kids, and you're wanting to keep that away from them, there are better options, better cost options for sure right now. I mean, having a good gun safe is the best option in my opinion. There's gun locks. If you wanted to use one of them, your gun probably came with one. Those usually end up in a drawer with me because I don't see the point in having a gun lock on my gun. That said, I have a very good safe, and my personal defense weapon, my concealed carry, is always on me. So therefore, I don't have to worry about someone getting a hold of it unless I know I'm handing it out, basically. And that's usually only with my close friends that I feel comfortable with, and there's usually, you make it safe before you hand it to them, and then they can check it out, and then you can put it back away. If you're so inclined to share to people that you're even carrying a gun. The best way I put it is it should be like putting your wallet on in your pants. Your concealed carry should be that much of your life, and that negates 100% of the smart gun idea. But as we move in this direction of all the newfangled cool stuff that everybody's interested in, it's one of those technologies that's gaining steam. Ian from Forgotten Weapons has even covered this biofire gun. I believe he's also covered the other 22 long rifle one. But the reason I think that it's really kind of asinine, to be honest, is what I've said. Not to be in a circle, not to talk around a circle, but think about this. You have a bad dude. You know, the worst case scenario. No one thinks that they should have to plan for this, but we plan because it rains, you know. I wish it would rain right now because it's like 102 degrees here in New Mexico, but anyway, I digress. When you have that extra step, yeah, it may stop you or pause you or may even stop the wrong person from shooting, but it could also stop you in the event you need it. And that is what is terrible, especially tonight. You know, I'm hearing about a cop that was killed in Alamogordo. He was shot in the face with a shotgun. And you think about that. If like I said, seconds count, helps minutes away. You know, that's a real thing in rural New Mexico. What do? You know, your gun you only have one gun. A lot of people only have one gun. I'm not one of those people. I'm a collector. But I also know that I have one gun that is always ready for me in that instance. And that's my personal carry gun. And with that, you know, you think about my personal carry gun. I think about my personal carry gun. If it was one of these things, what would happen? You know, now I'm stuck going to ground. Now I'm stuck having to use a knife. Now I'm stuck using my hands and feet to try to defend myself against someone who may be an armed attacker. You know, that's not a pleasant thought. And the more we allow our power to be ceded to the federal government and to the state governments, this is something that I can definitely foresee in the future, people pushing. When I say people, I mean the government pushing to try to curb violence. And it will have no effect. Just like all the gun bans that have happened in the past, making people have smart guns will not affect gun violence, because law-abiding citizens don't offend. And you can't tell me that a career criminal, couldn't find a way around this thing. You know, most devices with biometrics have some way of resetting the device so that you can get back into it. And the reason for that is because people forget stuff, batteries fail, and electronics fail. And again, for a device or a tool that you need, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, it's a cool thing for your phone because you can unlock it faster. It's a cool thing with your computer, I suppose. Again, this is more data that I don't like giving to the government, and I've even admitted that I've done that with my cell phone, knowing full well that the government can get to that stuff at any given time if they really want to. That said, there's some limit to that technology. There's some limit to that information exchange if you know what you're doing. Having a smart gun sounds great for leftists, especially those that espouse that they only have one for safety. Or what I would really ask a leftist if they were interested in this is, why do they have a gun anyway? The fact that most of the strong leftists, that is, they don't believe in guns. And in fact, you're seeing it on things like Quora, Quuara, which is kind of like Reddit. They're talking about framing. I mean, it's a joke right now, framing people so that for one crime or another, so that they can go after their gun. Or there was one that I thought was really stupid, when this person was saying that they would use a fake gun to hold them up to take their real gun. That will get you killed. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you see these people like in the UK. There's a guy they call Mizzy. And I mentioned him on this podcast, I think, one time before, where he's opening doors and just walking into houses. Number one, keep your door locked, because that's an open invitation for violence. Number two, anyone that walks in your home, in New Mexico specifically, is now free game. Now, you're not supposed to kill them unless you feel like they're a threat to you. But how you get around that is you're judged in that one instance just like a cop would be when you actually use force. So in that case, I would say someone walks in your door and you don't know if they're armed. You don't know the person. You don't know anything. You don't know their intent. For that split millisecond, you have a chance to use lethal force, in my opinion. And I believe that the courts would hold that up. And at least in New Mexico. If you're in New York, I think you're kind of hosed. If you're in California, you might be hosed. But bar in general, if you actually get a jury of your peers, you probably are going to get exonerated, because that is still one of those things, even without a state like New Mexico who doesn't have a castle doctrine. If you don't know what a castle doctrine is, that's where you can defend your home no matter what. Texas has it. A few other states have it. Most constitutional carry places have castle doctrine. Florida had it. So that's what I see happening, is I see them trying to circumvent gun control yet another way by forcing another device on the average gun user that we didn't ask for. Gun locks weren't a thing until legislation hit. You could buy them, but now they're required by law to be in every gun box you buy. Every box or every gun you buy, it has it in the box, or it should in the United States, because it's legislated by the federal government. So those are my thoughts on smart guns. Number one, adding another device to a tool already adds another point of failure. Having worked in IT, knowing the limitations of biometrics, because most devices I've ever worked with had to have a password included with the biometric signature, so that you could get around it if the biometrics failed. And that's what I see happening, is that this device will fail on you when you need it the most. Like, share, subscribe, be great.
My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought that I ain't catching all slack, and I have been in